How does one decide the real value of an art piece? Does it depend on the hand that created the piece, or the content of it? The answer isn't as obvious as you think. Today, we're getting into the greatest art forgeries that the world has ever witnessed, most of which have led to a loss of millions of dollars. You've probably seen iconic paintings by big names in the art world, but have you ever stopped to wonder if you're actually looking at the real thing? Let's take The Supper and Emmaus by Vermeer. Since it's a painting, only one will exist in the entire world. But what happens when a highly skilled painter recreates the painting, accurately down to the littlest strokes? How can you tell which one's real and which one's not? Well, it's highly likely that you can't, and that's where the dark side of the art market begins. Whenever one talks about forgeries, one can't help but talk about John Myatt. Why? Well, Myatt got famous for what Scotland Yard called the biggest art fraud of the 20th century. Myatt created a total of 200 forgeries in his lifetime, but that's not the craziest thing about him. It's the fact that he managed to sell them through some of the ritziest auction houses out there, including big names like Sotheby's and Phillips. But how did it all begin? Initially, Myatt started off by selling what he called genuine fakes through an ad in Private Eye. But then, one of his customers revealed that Christie's auction house paid £25,000 for one of Myatt's fake Albert Gleesus paintings. Right here, Myatt's career as a forger kicked into high gear. He started churning out fake paintings consistently by replicating paintings of artists like Chagall, Giacometti, and Matisse. The guy was on a roll until he got arrested, although he was out of jail within 4 months. While Myatt was working as a forger, it's estimated that he made over £275,000 from the scam in total. But if you think Myatt's case was bad, you've got to look at Van Meegeren. Han van Meegeren was a Dutch artist working in the early 20th century, and he was facing a big crisis. You see, critics saw his skill, but he clearly lacked originality. And somehow, this is when he decided to start forging artworks. He set his sights on Vermeer because very little was known about his life. This left plenty of room for speculation. Van Meegeren spent years perfecting his forgery game down in Nice. He nailed down the right materials and even made a homemade brush just like Vermeer's. He copies Vermeer's techniques, but that wouldn't have been enough. To be successful in what he was doing, he actually managed to get into the heads of art critics, giving them exactly what they were looking for in a Vermeer. In 1937, Van Meegeren came out with his masterpiece forgery of The Last Supper. Vermeer expert Abraham Bredius took one look and was convinced it was the real deal, and hailed it as a masterpiece. After this point, Van Meegeren was creating one convincing forgery after another, amassing a collection worth $30 million. Eventually, he did get caught and was charged with forgery, but he died from heart disease not long after his trial. But there's more to art forgery than these two geniuses. Wolfgang Beltracchi was a man who grew up surrounded by art, thanks to his father being into art restoration and painting murals for churches. He eventually started copying other artists' works, like most beginning artists do, but he didn't stop there. Instead, he decided to forge new pieces and sell them off at flea markets. In the 70s and 80s, Beltracchi got absorbed into the styles of French modernists and German expressionists, because it was easier to get his hands on the materials they would have used. He actually got so good at copying Campendonk style that he started creating fake Campendonks left and right. Interestingly, leading art scholar Andrea Firmenich even featured some of Beltracchi's works in a Campendonk catalog that he was putting together. Eventually, Beltracchi's fake pieces were getting sold for a lot of money at auctions. One time, actor Steve Martin paid $860,000 for Beltracchi's Campendong fake Landscape with Horses back in 2004. He also sold another forged painting of The Forest, too, to a fancy Paris gallery for $7 million, all painted in the style of Ernst. But as luck would have it, Beltracchi's empire of fakes came crashing down in 2008. Forensic experts analyzed some of Campendong's pieces and found pigments that weren't around during the supposed time the works were created. He then got hit with a 6-year prison sentence, though he managed to get an early release by promising to stick to painting under his own name from then on. And just like that, forgers rose and fell. But unfortunately, the millions of dollars that were sold on these forgeries could never be taken back.